Greetings Duels, and welcome to another video. So today we'll be talking about the rest of the TCG Exclusive archetypes. We've already have full confirmation and content reveals for Infinite Forbidden. Tomorrow should be the sneak preview, and then next week is going to be the official release. Today we'll be talking about the rest of the TCG Exclusives, which are an entire archetype. This archetype is called Mimighoul. So Mimighoul is an archetype that comprises of all Earth attribute monsters. We have 3 flip effect monsters and 1 main deck monster, 1 field spell, 1 normal spell, and 1 normal trap. So the gimmick behind this deck is that it is flip effect based. However, all the flip effects are negative effects that all the monsters have that actually affects the player. And the way all the Mimighouls work is they all special summon themselves to your opponent's side of the field in face down defense position. I'll go over each Mimighoul one by one, and then I'll explain like what you want to be doing with this archetype with all the monsters. You have Mimighoul Cerberus, which upon flip effect banishes the top 3 cards of their controller's deck, and then special summons one of the banished monsters to your opponent's side of the field. All the Mimighouls have this effect. Upon resolution of the flip effect, you have to give control of this card to your opponent. And this is a mandatory effect, meaning that the one who is flipping this card has no choice but to resolve the effect as long as they're in the main phase. You have Mimighoul Dragon, which upon flip pops all monsters on the field except for Mimighoul monsters, and then gives control of this card to the opponent. Then you have Mimighoul Archfiend, which gives your opponent 1 draw and gives the one who's controlling it 1 less card. And then you give the control to the opponent. So right off the bat, you have 3 flip effects that are really strong when they're resolving on the opposing player's side of the field. And this is a very big deal. I will get soon later onto why, but you can already see one of the hints that just involve like that strategy. So for the second effect, during your main phase, you can special summon this card to your hand, to your opponent's field in face down defense position. Now this is basically the main gimmick. You are giving these to your opponent and you're trying to find a way to just flip them in order to get their debuff effects. You have a few cards that make that possible. It's cards like Sword of the Revealing Light, Sol and Luna, Book of Taiyu is another one. You have the Prediction Princess archetype, which can also do that. You also have a bunch of other flip effect monsters. I will get to those a little bit later on. But yeah, you have enough ways to just flip these monsters, and you kind of want to do that as soon as possible in order to just supplement out effects and get your engine rolling. Another card that does this is the Mimighoul Archfiend. Upon normal or special summon, you can change 1 face down monster on the field to face up, attack, or defense position. Take note, this is any face down monster. It does not have to be the one your opponent controls. So if you're playing a flip centric strategy, like for example Duels, you can also benefit from this effect. Also, this works upon normal or special summon, which means 1 for 1 actually has a value in this deck. Let's continue with the other one. Mimighoul Dragon, same as all the others, can special summon face down. Upon normal or special summon, you can add a Mimighoul spell or trap from your deck to your hand. I will get to the Mimighoul spell and traps afterwards, but I can tell you right now, these are all really good. And then you have Cerberus, which basically your opponent cannot target face-up spells you control with card effect. This is the weakest one. However, this card does work with cards like, for example, Source of Revealing Light. It works with the Mimighoul Dungeon as well, which I will explain. And if you decide to just play floodgate spell cards, like for example Deck Lockdown or Dimensional Fissure, which really doesn't hurt this deck at all. This card also like makes it so they are untargetable. So this is the weakest one out of the three, but that's not to say that its effect is not relevant. It is very, very relevant. So let's go with the last Mimighoul monster. This one is not a flip effect monster. This is Mimighoul Master. Cannot be destroyed by battle or card effects while your opponent controls any face down monster, or you control a Mimighoul monster other than specifically Master. They just elude Master from this because they don't want you to just creating a soft block with multiple Masters on board. You can only use each effect once per turn. If this card is normal or special summon, you can add one Mimighoul monster from your to your hand. So right off the bat, this deck has a way of consistently just getting your monsters onto the board. You have this card that can search your stone traps, and then you have the Mimighoul Master that can search any of the monsters. Last effect, during your opponent's main phase, quick effect, you can change one face down monster on the field to face up, attack, or defense position. Take note, this goes back to what I was saying with Mimighoul Archetype. You can target your own monsters with this, which is really, really important because there are some flip monsters in the game. They are just very, very strong if they are if they get to resolve their flip effects. We won't be showcasing them here in this video, but maybe in the future we can just look into like the flip monster archetype or like the flip monster type and just look at everything. There are around 200 flip effect monsters, and some of them have really, really powerful effects if they're flipped. There are some that even knocks out like spell traps and monsters like once they're flipped. So this is by no means a slouch effect by any means. Obviously, the main purpose and gimmick behind this card is to flip the Mimighoul monsters that your opponent controls. And since they all have negative effects, your opponent won't be wanting to flip them unless you are forcing them, like for example with the Sword of Trivial Light. That's where Mimighoul Master comes in, just making sure that the Master itself can just flip off the Mimighoul and just like start creating havoc onto your opponent's resources. Let's talk about Mimighoul Dungeon. This card reads, Mimighoul monsters you control that were not normal or special summon this turn gain attack equal to their original defense. This is pretty strong because all the Mimighoul monsters have a really substantial amount of defense, but not enough attack points. And it's kind of slow because they're not asking for them to be summoned during the same turn. However, if you do get your engine rolling, you should have no issues resolving this card and just start trickling down your opponent's resources with like these effects. During your main phase, well, let's go to this first effect first. Any player who controls a face down monsters cannot normal summon monsters, nor declare an attack with monsters that were special summoned this turn. This effect does not look very, very strong as a floodgate effect. However, there are some archetypes that really, really get hurt by this card. The main archetype that comes into mind is Flowonderies. There are some other archetypes that just revolve around you, like normal summoning your monsters, or like for example Ritual Beast really get hurt by this card. Basically the main like concept or gimmick behind this card is forcing your opponent to actually flip their face down monsters if they want to actually progress through the game. Not being able to attack with special summon monsters is also really big. Like, it doesn't sound that strong in theory, but like for example against the Tempai Dragon strategy, like this is also a really big deal because Tempai Dragons don't have real ways of special summoning their monsters outside of using like their spell cards or like other monster effects. And if you can make sure they just keep a monster face down, they cannot OTK you. So this also incentivizes the Tempai Dragon strategy to also like flip. This also can hurt Voiceless Voice as well. Voiceless Voice don't have real like monsters that start the game without them trying to normal summon. So like right off the bat, this effect does kind of work. The last effect, during your main phase, you can add one Mimighoul monster from your deck or graveyard to your hand. You can only use each effect once per turn. This is also a really big deal. This is a very strong field spell in the sense that it can just keep recouping advantage each and every turn. Mimighoul does not look very strong coherently, so just having a card that just helps with the consistency of the archetype really benefits them a lot. And if you noticed, between Dragon, Dungeon, and Mimighoul Master, you have enough ways to just get your engine started like right off the bat. That is both beneficial and it is like a caveat. The main caveat on this is you are weak into cards like, for example, Drawing Lovebird and Mistake and Thunder Dragon Colossus, just to name a few. But on the bright side, this makes this engine or this deck very, very consistent, which is something you don't see with a lot of archetypes these days. Let's go with Mimighoul Banker. So this card reads, reveal 2 flip monsters with different names from your deck. Your opponent randomly picks one for you to special summon to their side of the field in face down defense position. Then you can add the other to your hand. Then you can special summon one Mimighoul monster from your hand. If your opponent special summons a monster, you can banish this card from your graveyard, target one face down monster your opponent controls, change it to face up attack or defense position. This card's incredible. The first thing I noticed is it reveals any 2 flip monsters. They don't have to be Mimighouls. And that is a really, really big deal because you have a lot of flip monsters in the game. Again, you have around 200 flip monsters. So the card pool for this card is incredibly varied. You can like set Shadow monsters if you want to play like a Shadow hybrid. You can set like Fire Sorceress, Hero Shadow Scout, Spear Cretin. The Morphing Jar monsters are also really strong. If they're flipped, no matter who is flipping them. Cyber Jar is another really strong one that is to be mentioned and considered. So that's just to say like there is like a really big move pool for this card. This card also makes your opponent have to think twice when they're special summoning. If they control like set monsters, like it's really hard for them to play around the negative effect of these cards. Right off the bat, I'd say one of the best monsters you can grab out of Mimighoul Banker would be Mimighoul Archfiend. The reason for this is if you grab Mimighoul Archfiend alongside any other flip monster and Archfiend is given to your side of the field, you can use Mimighoul Banker to special summon the Archfiend. And then the Archfiend can just flip the other monster and your opponent gets the detrimental effect. In the off chance your opponent ends up with a Mimighoul Archfiend, this is the best Mimighoul to start the game with because it's the one that benefits you the most on turn 0. Like as long as it's flipped, of course. This also special summons any Mimighoul from your hand. It does not have to be whatever you're revealing. So you can special summon any of these 3, and you can special summon the Mimighoul Master as well. So this is a really strong extender. Like right off the bat. So now that we've read into Mimighoul Banker, let's go with the last card. This is Mimighoul Room. This card reads, special summon one Mimighoul monsters from your hand or deck to your field in face down defense position, or, no, my bad, either special summon to your field, or you can special summon face down to your opponent's field. Then you can change one face of monster on the field to face down defense position. You can banish this card from your graveyard, then target any number of Mimighoul cards you control, return them to the hand. So this does have the weakest graveyard effect. However, the field effect is really powerful. Like basically you're just setting up your Mimighoul plays to your opponent, but worst case scenario, you can also set an opponent's monster. Setting an opponent's monster with Mimighoul Room does not look really strong. It's like a one-sided Book of Moon that does not target, which is already like strong enough. But if you pair Mimighoul Room with Mimighoul Dungeon, it becomes even more powerful, because it basically just turns on like Mimighoul's like debuff effects. Also, this just gives any Mimighoul to your opponent, so or just special summons any Mimighoul to your side. So let's say for example you have your opponent has a set Mimighoul and you have this card. You can immediately with this card summon Archfiend and use Archfiend's effect to flip the face down monster and just start like trickling down your opponent. The graveyard effect can come up. It basically helps you with your Mimighoul monsters. It does not say like on which turn you get to banish this card. It only that you're only restricted to one effect per turn. So like say for example your opponent wants to Imperm or FF Veiler or like do some sort of negation, targeting negation on these cards, you can chain the Mimighoul Room and have it dodge those negation effects while also retrieving back your Mimighouls. So now that you know what the entire gimmick behind Mimighoul is, I kind of want to talk about a few things that you can do for these cards, because in a vacuum this does not seem like a lot. It's only 7 cards and it is very centralized and focused on one theme. However, there are so many applications behind this archetype that it makes it very splashable with other engines. The first thing I've noticed is that you can play both Ghost and Match, and there can be only one in this deck. You do have different types and they're all Earth attribute. But Ghost and Match is a lot more detrimental. Same with There Can Be Only One, because you can give monsters to your opponent face down. So let's say for example you end up flipping Mimighoul Archfiend. They do have to give you control of this card, but in the off chance they do not, or you just have them like be summoned on their side of the field, like face upward for some reason. Like say for example you're playing against like Jubel or something that involves the Fiendsmith engine. There Can Be Only One will lock them out because they are controlling a Fiend type monster. Ghost and Match is on the same boat, like basically you're locking them into Earths. Granted that they do not get control back to your opponent. Because these are all Earth attribute monsters, I think the Vernosols like work really well with this archetype. Like the Vernosol monsters themselves are very strong. And again, these cards do trigger on special summon, so you can just like start like pushing through boards and just keep normal and special summon monsters and just keep extending and playing like through your opponent's field as well. You do that since they're all Earths, you can also play the Naturia monsters. And you're probably thinking like, how are you summoning Naturia monsters without tuners? You do have one archetype that can help you with that, and that is the Punk monsters, because the Punk monsters are all Earth attribute. Again, you can just mix them with Prediction Princess. You can use cards like Sol and Luna, which can also work as a defensive card. Instant Fusion is really good in this deck because Instant Fusion can get you to this card right here, Master of Ham, which involves like effects that benefits flip monsters. Also, if you decide to go the Shadow route, you can also special summon like El Shadow Winda. Granted, it will get destroyed in the end phase, so keep that in mind if you do that. And also try not get yourself locked out of Winda yourself. You can play triple tactic talents and thrust again. Like, it's very soon to tell if Sorcerer Ring would be like very beneficial in this deck, but it is a card that just gets your engine rolling if you just forcibly flip monsters back up, and it can be an annoying floodgate for your opponent. And the last iteration, or the last thing that you can splash with these cards that kind of makes me excited and kind of want to make me like start building this deck properly, is Gem Knights. So Gem Knight Quartz and Gem Knight Scatter Fusion have a really powerful effect, but in order to activate this card, your opponent must control a monster. For the longest time, Konami has eluded with this restriction in order to just prevent Gem Knight players to properly FTK. But now, with an entire archetype dedicated to giving monsters to your opponent, these two cards are now live and can be used as an engine. And take note, all the Gem Knight monsters are Earth attributes. So this also works well with with Vernus Elves, and also works well with the Earth Floodgates and with the Naturia engine. Just keep in mind, you are locked into Gem Knights for the rest of the turn when you're activating these cards. So, keep it on your hat whenever you're trying to build this archetype. But yeah, I think that's it for in terms of Mimighoul. I hope you found this video informative to your liking and understanding. It's been quite a while since we've had a very decent TCG exclusive archetype, and I think personally, this is one of the better ones we've had like in the past few years. It's very soon to tell what would happen with the next wave of support, but as of right now, I'd say we're in a really good spot. This engine or this archetype can become a meta contender in a foreseeable future, depending what Konami does with future support and with Forbidden Limited lists. Yeah, but that's it from me. Keep practicing and keep doing.